Welcome everyone to the CPA-fol podcast, episode 52. We're getting started right away. Like we're not gonna waste any time. Okay, well we might waste a little time in the beginning, just chatting, waiting
Always.
for people to trickle in. But I figured like why waste time in the beginning? Because we can have a lot to talk about. I feel like this is one where we could just go on and on for as long as we wanted to. But how you doing, Oliver? It's been a while since you've been on the channel, but how are things going over there?
I know. I'm trying to think back of the last stream I hopped on. It's definitely been a little bit, but as always, fantastic to be here. Thank you for sending me over the invite, and man, I'm excited for this one. If you guys haven't seen the interview, I know it's in the live chat, a link to it. It was really, really cool, and I can't wait to start going into everything that Randy actually went into about the comics.
Yeah, and it was, I feel like even, so I did rewatch it today, but in rewatching it, I was like, kind of, I don't know if I was holding myself back or just like, I'm just going to let him talk. I'm just going to let him go and just not cut him off because I don't want to break up his line of thinking or thought. So
You don't want to hop into that.
Yeah,
and also like he was going pretty not like crazy in depth, but he was clearly talking to like every audience. And like it's almost like you don't want to stop and be like, actually, I don't understand what that means. Like, can you just pause for like, no, you just want to let him go.
Yeah. There were definitely a couple times where I was like, so for someone who doesn't understand art, like what in the world does a brush versus I guess in retrospect I was like, well, obviously, a brush is going to be like this swoopy stroke.
I think that was the one. I think I noticed the one when you said brush, he like kind of looked over of like, it's a brush.
I was like, yeah. So at any rate, though, it was just a super fun interview, and the people who stick it out till like the 1 hour 27 or 1 hour 30-minute mark will be in for a real treat because it'll give them a little bit of a teaser into what's hopefully coming next. The only reason it won't happen is if I don't have the time to make it happen. But do you recall?
Yeah. No, there was a couple things right at the end. We'll get to it at some point, so I'm not going to be the one to drop the info there. But yeah, there was some cool stuff right at the end. It made it absolutely worth it.
and the funny part is that he was the one that was like, we could do something like this. I'm like,
and he was completely like he was totally bought in. It was awesome.
Yes, absolutely. So super excited to see what happens in the future. I know there's already a couple comments flipping on. So I know there were a couple people asking, and it's kind of the for us Bionicle heads, it's the natural next question of, well, we want like high res scans of all these things, and he did go into it a little bit at near the end of the video, but saying that like, well, that kind of breaches into the distribution side of things, and it's a little hairy when you start getting into that. So long story short, he's not gonna be able to provide high res scans of these things unless, of course, Lego says yes, that's fine, you can do that, which, I mean, you and I both know.
Yeah, probably not gonna happen.
Lego spends a lot of time creating their IPs, and once they're not using them anymore, no one else is gonna be able to use them.
Well, are they not using it anymore? That's a whole separate discussion, but there's a chance. You never know.
I was gonna say, do you know something that I don't about?
I wish. Are you?
So, all right. Well, you put in a lot of work, and I'm very grateful for throwing this kind of bullet point list of thoughts together about the interview. So I'm definitely I'll have that up. I'm sure you have that up as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, I figured it'd be what better thing to do than to just kind of work our way through the video, working on basically where Randy started with things, and at the very beginning. So like, I found it interesting that I mean, and in some instances, it kind of makes sense. Like, he was literally always into comics, always into art, doodling, and all that stuff. So in some ways, it was kind of just a typical story. Did anything stick out to you in those parts?
I didn't think about it beforehand, but then when he was mentioning his whole backstory, like growing up with comics, I was like, well, yeah, of course, that makes a ton of sense. But I didn't actually think of it beforehand of, oh, this is probably something like when he was super young, comics just inspired him and it carried it out. I thought it was really cool when you put together the pieces of like, oh, well, you had this job as like an assistant, what was it, an inking assistant
Yep.
right out of high school. And I was like, well, time out
Yeah.
a second. Like,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah, I was also surprised when he was talking about how he mentioned going from 14 to 17 or 13 to 17 and gaining all this experience. I don't know about you, but from looking at my 13, 14 to 17, 18 year range, I don't really look at any of that as gaining experience for a life career.
No, there was definitely gaining skills, but I wouldn't say that any of those things that I was super focused on then were what I'm doing now. For him specifically, it was like, no, that's just straight into feeding into the pipeline of like, no, I'm going to take this and run right out of high school.
Yeah.
And
which
so,
is super cool. Super cool that like I didn't have that really when I was in high school as far as like I know what I'm going to do. I had an idea, something business, yada yada. But for him to know pretty much when he was 13 years old, like this is what I'm going to do. Is super cool.
I guess I can somewhat relate to when I was probably like 8 or 9, building Connects roller coasters. That just fed me straight into engineering, and then it turned into structural engineering, and then I actually ended up doing it. But also during that time, like 13 to 17, I was doing a ton with video, and it was unclear to me, well, am I going to take this and then that's going to be my career, or what am I going to do? So yeah, for him to just kind of, I don't want to say necessarily no, but just kind of go with his feeling of this stuff is really enjoyable to me and I want to keep doing it forever. How do I do that? I think is really cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. A couple of people hanging out in chat. Coolhan Luke Bricks, the first channel member. Didn't get a chance to watch the interview, but glad it went well. You'll definitely have to. It's definitely one of those interviews you can kind of just keep in the back. If you're super into Bionicle, you'll definitely want to be looking at the points where he shows the stuff on screen. But other than that, it's just a great opportunity or a great video interview to listen to if you want to learn a thing or two about Lego art, Bionicle Lego art, comics, all that great stuff.
Yeah, and you're saying like, peek in every once in a while. Literally right off the bat, there's an incredible backdrop. There was no time at all. Like, it's the first thing I noticed. I was like, wait a second. Like, I heard about all of those things potentially coming up during the interview. And it was just right out the bat. Like, oh yeah, there's all of the original pencils.
Yeah, for real. And let's see. I'm gonna scrub through the video till we get to the first part, just to show a little of the background for people watching the stream right now. I'm gonna have to add a screen share real quick.
Were you surprised at the costs that he was giving for the covers? Or did you kind of like go in with like any, I had absolutely no guess. And then when he said it, it didn't sound crazy to me.
Yeah,
but I never even thought about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was surprised, just because like art and just that whole scene is, it can get very expensive very quick. So it didn't entirely surprise me, more or less. But yeah, there's his, you can see he's got his, in the background, all those artwork, the panels, the movie, the two top left ones are movie pencils, which is crazy.
I didn't put it together until he actually said it and explained that they just wanted I guess what did he describe it as? They just wanted a separate creation of those movie box arts just in the form of a comic, I guess. Like, it wasn't like that was taken and then made to the movie. That was really cool. I didn't even realize it until you guys had mentioned that those are the movie covers. Like, when you had mentioned, oh, that's Legends of Metru Nui, I was sitting there the whole time trying to figure out what comic it was.
Yeah, that, and you remember the Legends of Metru Nui movie cover, and Vakama's face is like all weird. Do you remember? It's like they rendered something really weird. So I wonder if like his correct version was used to fix it, because it's wrong in some spots.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Let's see. Okay, so there's the movie version, so that one's fixed. Okay, no, it's the book. I think it's the book cover. Here, I'll message it to you.
Oh yeah, I see it. Yeah, it's like the left side of his mask isn't even
Yeah,
there.
yeah. So I don't know if that has anything to do with anything. Maybe not. Probably
Maybe.
not, but who knows? But yeah, no, I thought that was super cool to see that kind of stuff. Let's see. And then, of course, I love how right off the bat he's like, "So you want to see? You want to see
Yeah.
some of the process?" I was like, "Yes,
I
I
was
do."
impressed at how much he just had ready to go there. Not to mention, I mean, you have it up right now. Those bookshelves, when the first time you cut to the wide angle, look at how much he's weighing onto those bookshelves. Like those things are completely deflecting. I was like, he is really pushing, like as far as you could go without making them break.
Yeah. And Coolhan mentioned that your graphic novel collection is thick when your shelves are bowing hard.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, no, that's hilarious. So
But
those scripts and just how the process of going from looking at the script, drawing out those thumbnails of just a quick sketch, and in some respects, and later in the interview, I asked if there was any pushback from Lego of, well, we don't really like that scene.
Yeah.
Maybe it's too much for kids, but it sounded like that didn't really happen at all.
It sounded like he had a lot of, I don't want to say creative control, because he was given the scripts and kind of like their general, like, hey, that we want Kopaka falling here, we want this, that. But then after that, it seemed like it was kind of, which I imagine as an artist is a great feeling of, yes, you have to do what they want, but it's not like they're coming back over and over and just like haunching down over you and saying like, no, change every little thing that you did. It sounded like for the most part, he did get to kind of create a vision. But it was given, I guess, loose direction that eventually just had to get stamped by Lego.
Yeah, and to some extent, that I believe that's how it was with Greg Farsty and how he wrote.
Yeah,
talking with him a couple months ago, he mentioned like he didn't even know if people at Lego were actually reading his book. So in some respects, that's kind of like okay, I guess you guys don't really care. But then in other respects, like you get to make whatever you want. And that's how he was writing to.
Yeah.
He was writing up to 10-year-olds in a way of like 7-year-olds are reading 10 to 13-year-old type content in a good way of like they're stretching their learning, which is awesome.
Agreed. I wonder how much of it was like in first, and because Randy had been involved since issue 2, he did the coloring for issues 2 through 9. If they didn't expect it to necessarily boom as much as it did, and after that first year or the second year, if he noticed any sort of shift of now they're starting to be a little bit more oversight than what there was in 2002.
Yeah, that would be interesting to know. I feel like I probably would lean towards no, they didn't really ever have that much oversight, just because like he didn't, in his question, like he didn't give any inkling at all, pun intended.
No, he never
of them caring.
No, he also didn't have any tone to him, especially because he was talking about like issue 27's cover. Like there was never any like tone shift from him of, okay, maybe those times were not as enjoyable. It sounded like for him, he was as happy from day one as he was on the final one.
Yeah, and just the fact that he's creating what, to some extent, whatever he wants. Like obviously he has to fit the story, but in some respects, like he could choose whatever style.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool that he got to like design the panels themselves. Specifically, he brought up the one Bohrok one where there were a couple diagonal cuts throughout the page, and he really went into how it starts with like the background process of almost like with a movie, you storyboard, then you have like a better idea of the shot and the set. And then, so seeing that process was really cool, especially with a couple of the panels was, hey, here's the bare bones layout. And then I know you had been pulling up from either Biomedia Project or I had all the comics in front of me at the same time of going through those and just trying to figure out like, or not figure out, but just it was very fascinating to see how much changed, and it was cool that he actually got to design those. It wasn't like, hey, here's your blocks, you need to fill this area.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that aspect is super cool. And I know with Greg, he said he tried to do that at first when he was writing the story. Like, okay, page 1, comic pane 1, it should be this. And then they came back to him and said, just stick to writing. We'll take care of that part. So in a nice way, I'm sure. But yeah, so that kind of reinforces it for hearing from both sides of, Farsty was straight up story. He would get them from A to B. The artist or the penciler would then do whatever they want, literally whatever they wanted. So
I thought it was cool how he went from, I guess, the inking part of it to then actually taking over the penciling and the inking. I mean, looking at some of the credits of these early issues, there's a lot more people involved. And then with, I guess, once he started, probably even starts with just even number 10 of it, turns into like, no, it's just artist Randy Elliott. And and it's like, okay, he actually, and he detailed, typically it would take him one full day to either ink a page or to completely pencil a page.
Yeah, and he did, Chrising is on some of them, but it sounded like the only reason Chrising was there is because he needed a little help, a little sub in to finish some of them just because they were taking a while.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he still had oversight. His vision was still coming across.
I had never noticed until he showed the originals, and when he held them up close, you could see his actual signature on it.
Yeah.
I never noticed that on the covers. It says Randy Elliott on all of the art. I never noticed that at all.
I don't think. Let me see. I don't think Deanda, his signature Carlos, is anywhere on these.
Yeah, I don't see.
Let's see, I guess
he has his name on the front cover. I don't see them anywhere.
Maybe it's only some of them, because on issue 12, I don't see Elliott's signature.
Interesting. I wonder how much of that I really appreciated how he went into the aspect of keeping your originals, and he now is a professor over at Syracuse, I guess, and how he's telling what he offers over to his students. But that at the time when he was gaining experience in high school, keeping your originals wasn't always done by the artists, and more times than not, the actual whatever firm you're working for, company, whatever, they would end up taking the art and kind of exploiting you in that way. But
I think it sounded like they would buy them. They would buy them, is what I gather, but
just secure the rights,
just pennies on the dollar.
Yeah,
they're buying the original from you because they know.
Yeah.
More likely than not, they're going to get their money back.
Yeah. So I wonder how much of him was like, I'm like, no, like this is mine. I want to make sure that my signature is actually on this piece of art, not just that it is mine.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really cool. And then obviously like way towards the end, he was mentioning how he does get to keep the originals. He owns them, but he can't reproduce anything. Yeah. And you talked about that briefly at the start of the stream of, it's not like he could just go create a whole book that does still need Lego's thumbs up.
Yep. Yeah, because he literally just owns the physical piece of paper. I think him showing it isn't obviously him distributing it. Doesn't breach any sort of rules of copyright. But he doesn't. He can't print it. Even digitally would probably cross a line.
There's probably a gray area there that
even if it's not selling it or anything. Yeah, it's like opening, because then you're opening doors. Someone else could do that.
Do you think he has digital scans of everything?
He does not. But he has, like, he could easily go. Well, actually, no, he does not. But he said he has a scanner that can go up to 1200 DPI, which is. And
I love how he casually was just like, it can. He's like, it might be good enough, and I was like, well, how much? And then eventually he's like, yeah, it's 1200. Like 1200. Like, are we like scanning billboards? Like,
that's like four times any.
Yeah.
Four times any just magazine print, because he mentioned like normal print is 300.
Right.
Yeah. 1200 is like.
And you'll like web pages are generally like 150, so it's like 10 times crisper than a web page. No big deal.
So back to the topic of selling or the artist retaining the original. It kind of just jogged my memory of seeing on eBay in the last year. Are you familiar with Bionicle Quest for the Masks, the trading cards?
Yes.
So Clover Press had been selling all of them for like $100 each, the original drawings. And it's kind of interesting that I guess it works both ways, because I did a little bit of research, and the guy who did the original drawings for them either worked or became a part owner or something of Clover Press. So I guess at the end of the day, he's still selling them through his business. But it's just really fascinating that they're all coming through there. And only just now, they're all being sold for anywhere from 100 to 200 each for one individual, two sides. Artwork, black and white prints, which is just crazy.
No, and I wonder how much of it is, he talked a little bit about his life timeline of his kids are getting out of college, and he almost looks at keeping those originals as you or I would look at a retirement fund. Like, that's eventually, like, that's your nest egg that builds up and up. And so I wonder how much of that is just the artists, the ages that they were when Bionicle first started. Now they're all just kind of at that point where, they're nearing the end of their career and are just, I don't want to say cashing in, that has a bad taste to it, but are just like at the point where they're like, you know what, like, it's time to start offloading some of my originals.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see when that finally does happen, because I'm sure, like, I don't know if Duck Bricks or
he's gonna end up with all those covers.
He's gonna try and grab, because I mean, like,
all of them,
5 G's each, or like 1,000 for a random page, 5 for a cover. I mean,
10 for he said around 10 for this 14th.
Like, that's gonna be
and especially I wonder how much of it is, obviously he even mentioned during your interview that someone was contacting him about trying to get 14. I wonder how much of it, and I imagine to a degree he does not gatekeep it, but it wants to make sure that it's going to a good place.
I would hope so, because it would be a shame if, and I don't know, like, would you think going to the wrong place would be just selling to someone who's then going to turn around and sell it for a 50-100% mark?
That's what I would say.
I guess to his credit, like, if someone is willing to buy it, can't fault him too
depending
much.
on the
like,
amount.
He needs to retire.
Fair. But then at the same time, it's
mean.
like, if someone could sell it for 50% more, charge them a bunch more. But
exactly.
When he talked about, what was it, the Magic Gathering? The Magic the Gathering card, where it was the cheese card that he had done, and he was like, I would ask for like a semester of college worth, and I was like, whoa, okay. So
because that's like, that would be 50.
I would imagine Syracuse in-state has to be at least like 30 or 40. And
I mean, like, that I did look up that card right before. Is it a little more than that? A little more tuition, or
60 is the flat tuition at Syracuse.
Yeesh. That's but I mean, the original of this card, that is an insanely rare card. I've found, not insanely rare. It's a rare card. And
powerful.
Like, you get the card, you can literally win the game, which is, I don't. Do you play Magic? Have you played Magic the Gathering at all?
No. I'm a little bit familiar with the space, and I've seen like images of decks and stuff like that, but I've never actually engaged with any of it, so I can't speak from any experience sort of standpoint. The closest thing was probably when I was like 8 years old playing Pokemon.
Nice. Let's see if I scroll down at all on this page. Like, the community rating is 4. Its rarity rating is rare. Surprise. So it was just funny to see that aspect of things. Real quick before we get too far, I did want to show one of these. This panel here, he mentioned, and in rewatching the video, I reheard it. He said this was a cover variant.
Yeah.
It was one of 4. So I don't think, and this was for 10. Like I could zoom in on the picture, and I think it was the cover variant for 10. This one never was used anywhere, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
It's like literally, that's the only place
It looks
exists.
familiar.
I know,
It
and
looks
that's the
so
other
familiar.
thing. I spent like, I don't know,
Yeah.
10, 15 minutes scrolling through issue 10, scrolling through issue 12. And I was like, I feel like I've seen this before, but
I know,
have
it
no
looks
idea where.
really familiar. It looks really familiar. I don't know. But I wonder how much would those are. I mean, obviously one of one is one of one, but to have a variant, I would imagine is potentially even more of an upcharge.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, and I imagine, like, depending on, does he have 3 other variants, or even it would be interesting, the ones where he had to. I don't know if he said. I guess there were a couple times where Lego, they'd come back and say, well, we actually wanted this, and he would have to redraw it or redraw something else. So those ones would be interesting to have. I don't know if he would just kind of get rid of those for cheaper, or if they'd potentially be worth more, because
that's what I'm wondering, because you've never seen it anywhere. It's not like you could have a version of it from a comic somewhere that is inked in. I almost imagine like it's not like a misprint piece, but it's kind of like that. And I thought it was so cool when he was mentioning how he would actually get the set sent to him. Makes sense, but so that he could use those as he was drawing. But that some of them ended up with 3D printed prototype parts.
Yes.
Just casually threw that in there.
Yeah. I don't know if he realized in the moment, or if he has realized it since, that like, no, those are duck bricks. I know. Well, he definitely has a handful of them from Faber, but that's definitely something that he would want to get his hands on.
Yeah.
Various other Bionicle collectors would want to get their hands on. So, no, that was.
What is it? Bionicle Sealed History. I think that's the account.
Yeah. I'm sure. I feel like he would have to be like, no, I can't get into like the non-retail stuff, because then you're down a whole different rabbit hole.
Oh, then that's a deep rabbit hole too. That's not,
because there's no stopping there, because there's just so many.
No, and that's what's so fascinating when the people behind Bionicle. I mean, we saw it with this when Duck Bricks had the whole episode with Christian Faber, seeing all of these things that you would never know exist that now seem to just be being brought more and more to light as the community's growing. There's a lot of really fascinating things that, the rabbit hole is a deep one.
Yep. And then here's one of his later comic covers. I think it was
27.
So it was the last one, and he mentioned it's crazy, the technicality. What did he say? Like it's really tight. Yeah, that's what he mentioned. Like,
when he was describing this panel specifically, it was nice to hear him say, this was my background for this. But then way back when he was bringing up like issue number 10, the backgrounds were way less detailed, and so he was just honing in more and more throughout his experience there, to the point where the backgrounds almost look as polished as what the actual final inking or a final pencil probably did.
Yeah. And then when he was phased out for Sager, I'm curious to know what those conversations were like, if they just saw his artwork and like, we want to go this different direction.
Yeah, it sounded like, and he had the one image where he almost gave them an idea of like, here's like a more of a 2D art version type of a comic look that you could have. I almost wonder if he just kind of presented that and they're like, well, we actually just want to move in a different direction. And I definitely noticed that when reading the comics back of, yes, once the Ignition series starts, very different art style. But I actually didn't feel that way with when it changed from Deanda to Randy. I guess part of that is because Randy had done so much of the actual inking for 2 through 9. But it's definitely a much more significant shift in the art style between Randy.
But I also feel like looking at one issues 1 through 4, 5 down here below.
Yeah.
Even Diendo was definitely more so stylized in my mind than Elliott was. Like Elliott was very, very true to the toy.
Yes.
And I feel like
Agreed.
and I kind of like that.
Yeah, you mentioned that directly to him. Yeah.
You can relate them. You can correlate the toy to the comic much closer. And as a kid, like you can see your own toy in there, which is kind of cool.
And
like imagining what these characters are doing.
And that was one of my takeaways from it too, of when he was describing kind of like his love for comics and specifically with like the Bionicle ones and how it potentially impressed upon people at young ages. You specifically brought up Iconic Stills and you guys went through some of his work.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as a kid reading those comics, that it almost felt like you felt a lot more immersed in a sense of it just felt like you were playing out one of the scenes with your Bionicles. Whereas I don't think the movies have that element quite as much.
Yeah, and it would like the stuff like you mentioned that Iconic Stills does, Know the Robot, stuff like that. It would be really, really cool. And I know someone, I think Know the Robot posted on a story of like, would you like to see a Bionicle movie in Into the Spider-Verse style graphics? It's like, yeah.
That's kind of like, do you remember the 2005 or 2004 animations? It was either the Vaki or the Roodaka. We had some interesting like 2D animation clips. I want to say it was the Vaki, but it wasn't Into the Spider-Verse.
For the commercials?
I almost thought they were just like web. I thought they were just web videos.
Was it like the one where the Vaki he like flips his head upside down? And turns
I think
around.
It is a promos for the Vaki.
Okay.
It's definitely like a classic, like 2D Disney animated style.
I think they had those for the Toa Metru as well.
Maybe.
Promos.
It would make sense for 2004.
Yeah. But still, even in that sort of that style, is really cool. Let's see, where are the comics? Oh yeah, I'm pulling up some of Sager's just to kind of get a mental visual spot of. But I also feel like, oh yeah, wow. I guess I knew in my mind that they were much more gritty, but even more so seeing it in front of me now. Wow. But I feel like, no, maybe he couldn't / wouldn't, like it just wasn't in his wheelhouse of that kind of style of doing that. But I feel like if they asked him to, he could have.
I think so, and especially on like the inclination of they were talking to him, or he was describing how, and it might have been exactly when he was describing this panel of, he did get a little bit darker throughout 2003 or whatever 2001 to 2005.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it was almost just like too big of a leap, or if it was just something completely different. But I agree that 100% he would probably be able to have transitioned right to it.
Yeah. So as far as your exposure to these comics, were you reading them when you were younger? Were you?
I 100% definitely didn't collect them, at least not to a degree of where I remember having a stack of them. Definitely were reading them because I was subscribed to Lego Shop at Home and the Lego Club, whatever it was back then. So I was definitely getting them and reading them. I don't think I know that I didn't read any of the Ignition ones past that. I would say I was probably up until like the end of the Metru Nui saga, probably at the end of 2004. I definitely read as a kid. I was also pretty into the actual novelizations.
Yeah, yep.
But some of them, and then back in, I think it was 2021, like February 21, I had went and got all of the comics, and there was definitely a lot of familiarity reading through them.
Yeah. So for me, I don't know why, but I don't know if my mom just assumed it cost money or something, or if she just didn't want to have the temptation for me to ask for things over and over again. But we never had any of the magazines growing up. It was like,
oh, that's brutal.
I know. It was like if
especially now, man.
and of course Lego doesn't do anything remotely like this in print
No,
anymore. Um,
no.
but it was always looking at the instructions of another set that I had, looking in the back where they had the promos for other sets,
Yeah.
was the main spot.
I actually do still have the magazines. So I guess that's also how I know that I definitely got these. Is I still have some of the magazines from like 2002 to 2004 or 5. So so fascinating to look through. And yeah, I'm kicking myself because why didn't 6-year-old me know to buy the $300 UCS Star Destroyer or all the $7
I mean, come
Toas?
on.
Like, what was I doing?
And keep them all sealed, waiting,
Yeah.
waiting. But and the other thing that I remember getting was maybe twice in my life, in my childhood, my mom got us the Lunchables.
Yeah.
And one of the times
yeah.
they had the Toa Metru leaflet
saw this.
comics in the Lunchables, and I think he mentioned those. Yeah, let me put you on the
Yeah, back cover of
There you
17 is what I'm looking at right now. Yeah. Those, I remember these as well. I core memory unlocked talking about the Lunchables mini comics. And
word.
he also talked about there were other mini comics throughout, and McDonald's obviously had a couple.
Yep.
I remember them coming actually in like some of the Toa Metru sets had as well.
Yeah, I don't know if any of the cans that I have over there, some of them have to, because some of them are from my childhood, so I know I kept everything with it. Didn't separate anything. But let's see. I'm scrubbing through the interview.
Were you surprised when he said it was just kind of like a right place, right time situation, how he landed the job? And he also alluded to the fact of, well, it's not just that, it's also having the right skill set, but that it wasn't like a long interview process, all this.
There
and
was
that
no
stuff to get
interview
it.
process, it sounded like.
Right.
It sounded like Lego came to them and said, hey, we need an inker.
Yeah.
They had one other guy doing it, it sounds, Bennett.
Yes.
He did it issue 1, 2, and then apparently he was doing something else, so they said, hey, Elliott, Randy, come help us. And then from then on out, which is, that really surprised me. I was expecting like interview or however, if they just look at the portfolio. Or
like, hey, I was working with Lego specifically, like somewhere else, or like someone I knew that, like, it just kind of fell into place.
Yeah, which that's pretty wild, and that he was able to do that for 25 plus comics is crazy. But
also super jealous that for the Metru Nui comics, he was talking about not only did he have access to the sets, but he actually got to see some of the movie art in advance too, to make sure that those worlds also mesh together, because he was like, I asked them like, well, what's protodermis? Are the Bohrok queens, have we seen them before? What color, this and that? And it's like, okay, the movie's being produced too, probably do need to make sure that all of our visuals are kind of in line.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. Shreddy says Lego and Lunchables is wild. They were only Lego comics, unfortunately. Still wild to get comics in Lego Lunchables. I think the most crazy thing Lego ever did was putting the Matoran in
the McDonald's.
Mickey D's,
I wish they could do something like that. Like, could you imagine minifigures is a Happy Meal? Like, is that how we're gonna get a Star Wars CMF? We're gonna get it in a McDonald's Happy Meal.
And some of those are still exclusive.
I have them. There's one right over here.
Yeah, even that and they're the parts. I'm pretty sure they didn't release all of the parts in other sets.
No, they didn't.
Like the feet.
Those came in a couple of the 2000. I mean, the 2003 Matoran had those.
Okay.
The arms, the Boxer had one of the arms, but it didn't have the disc throwing arm.
Okay. And it was just
the torso
as well.
The torso, well, it's tricky because Nuparu was included with the Boxer, so there was him, and then the Power Pack had what was it, Hafu, the power pack had an additional one as well. So, but yeah, outside of that, you couldn't buy one at retail. It was just through McDonald's.
Yeah, which is crazy that they made exclusive colors at least. And
Yeah.
now I guess they reused all the masks at one point or another.
Well, they are all the Toa masks except for Maku.
Anua, yeah.
They're all the Toa
True.
masks,
Yeah.
just in different colors.
Yeah. I guess I didn't. I knew that, but thinking of different colors is like, oh yeah, I guess they are the same. They're different to me.
They felt that way to me. I mean,
Yeah.
Maku's to me, that's not Vakama's mask. It's its own thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it was Maku the green?
No, Maku's blue. Green was Kongu.
Yeah. Well, because they have it's Vakama's mask, but it's lime green. Who's that character? And he's got like the swords in his hand.
Lime green.
Did I just have like a mock in one of my collections?
I think you might have. Vakama's
Let me-
mask in light green. I don't remember ever seeing.
I definitely have.
You're sure?
It's somewhere in
Vakama's?
here. Yeah. We're both furiously.
I know.
Seven parts. Here, I'll put it on this. I'll put it on the screen so the people.
I'm so curious what this might be. I genuinely have no.
Okay, so there's his mask. Appears in 11 sets. I know. Maybe it was just in a
Maybe
mask
you just.
pack.
I think you probably got it in a mask pack and then put it on something else.
I didn't make the mock. It was in a set in a lot purchase that I bought, but I thought I remember lime green Huna.
There's definitely no set that has.
Oh, you know what? I think it was they took not the Bohrok Kal, lime green with the swords or green.
Yeah.
And then put his mask on it. Yeah, that has to be what it was. But I swear I thought I remember seeing images, but no, okay, yeah, no, it was definitely they took Bohrok Kal, the green one, and Levak Va and somehow rigged Vakama's mask on there somehow. So that's that. I think we solved it. Maybe. I took it apart, so I can't go grab it and show you.
1 of 1, it's gone.
I missed out on a great mocking opportunity there. Okay. Let's see if I can find.
I think one takeaway that I had was just the difference in, I guess, today's age versus back then is he was like, I really didn't have a lot of interactions with the fans. Like if I bumped into someone whose kid was super into Bionicle, then we would start talking about it. But he's like, but then I would be talking to like a 10-year-old about it. I wasn't like now, especially, I mean, obviously the internet's the internet. But I imagine it'd be completely different in terms of being able to hear feedback. He said straight up that he had never heard feedback from anybody. He was just going about his business.
Yeah, that aspect was really interesting because I'm not sure even if he would have adjusted his art or just adjusted something to make it more adherent to the fans, or if because these were, and this kind of blew my mind when I think I figured or found this out. All these comics were free in the Lego magazine.
Yeah. Other than I'm looking at one. Issue number 1 has a $225 priced right on the front cover, but other than that, issue 2 says $225.
I think they all have prices just because they have to. I would imagine that's just like a DC Comics thing. But no, that aspect like kind of blew my mind. Like I'm buying these now, and they were free. Lego was giving these away once upon a time just because it was part of their marketing budget. They were able to. And they did, which is crazy.
I wonder how that worked out in terms of like the payback. Like he was kind of describing as, at least maybe I misinterpreted, but that you're getting a commission based on how many get sold. And he was talking about how Bionicle Comics reached 1 million households.
It kind of sounded like he received commission based on how many they sent out.
Yeah.
I think. I would imagine there was a reasonable scale, but it sounded like it paid really, really well, and it was sort of a dream job in that respect. Which
Yeah, and it was really cool how he was like, no, when I started doing this, he kind of realized like, no, there's something here. Like, this is not just like a small little thing. Like, there is something here that's gonna grow.
Yeah, which is that aspect is really, really cool. And of course, on the screen now, I have the iconic number 14.
How do you feel about the kids in his Syracuse classes? Because this is that big soft book he takes with him, like as a part of the introduction day. They just the kid sitting front row has no idea. Potentially has no idea.
Just swipe it. No, don't swipe it. But no, yeah, seeing that in person, even having a print of that, a high DPI scan / print would be so cool. So insane. But let's see what else we got. Ah, yes, my favorite cover, number 13, just because the Rahkshi. I love the Rahkshi.
Oh yeah.
So seeing all those is just so cool.
Are you pulling up the pencil of it?
Yep.
I thought that his breakdown of this was so much fun to actually take a part of. When he was talking about, well, the Rahkshi in the front, he pops because of he manipulated the line weights, and it was just all these little things that you would never notice. His breakdown of this was so fascinating.
Yes, that was awesome, and that'll kind of feed into. I'll just say it now, with 11 people watching. If you're enjoying the stream, make sure you like the stream. If you're new here to the channel, drop a subscribe. There are definitely going to be more of these coming soon in the future, whether it's the interview that you saw or us just live stream talking about it. It's a great time. Especially, I really want to get into the Bionicle community as far as videos that can do well. Unfortunately, unless it's like your channel or someone else's channel where that's their entire channel, maybe I should create a new channel. Actually, that's probably what I should do, and just have that one focus on Bionicle. Just because
it's hard. It's hard to establish, and like it's so funny because obviously I'm most well known for all the Bionicle stuff I did, but there's so much more that I do, and it's like trying to break out of that space and be like, no, like there's a bunch of other Lego stuff. It's like, no, you're Bionicles. Like same thing. It's like, it's almost like a rebrand is necessary. If you're like, all right, this is my Bionicle space.
Yeah, and then YouTube kind of serves it as a completely different audience as well, it seems, which is wild. Makes sense, I mean, but and even did you ever see the Brian Ellis art, his videos where he broke down his design of Nuparu and his design of Pridak?
No, I've never seen that.
You should definitely add that to your watch later.
Okay.
I had him on the channel, interviewed him about his design of Pridak and Nuparu, and which he pronounces it Nuparu, which I thought was interesting. But
interesting, yeah.
He has said many times like he doesn't want to be a Bionicle channel, but those Bionicle videos have been like locking, and it's really stinks because his videos can't even like break 100 views on some of them, which is unfortunate because he's a really, really good artist. He has a pretty interesting video style that he follows for each ones, and then at the end he does the whiteboard art, takes a print screen with a very nice printer that can go across the whiteboard, which is kind of crazy, and then he sprays it with a solution and then dissolves it, which is kind of cool as well. But yeah, he's kind of locked into the Bionicle thing as well, which is a little kind of.
I feel that, Brian.
For real. So, but yeah, so for the next video or / interview, live stream, however I do it, the plan is, and at the end of the video, he brought it up, which is awesome, issue by issue breakdown of his art. So right there. And depending on, I don't know if he would want to start with the first one he inked or just start with number 10. They're 10 through
Yeah,
27.
it's
Like we've
seemed
got at
like,
least 17.
yeah. I feel like when he would refer back to like his beginnings, it almost felt like it always started with number 10. I feel like he didn't
Yeah.
mention 2 through 9 a ton. So I would think it probably starts with 10. I also don't know, does he have any of the pencils from 2 through 9? I don't
That's a
think
good
so.
point. No, I think the only one he mentioned that he had was
Oh, right, he did at one point.
number. It was one of the covers in the back behind him. I think it was like number 4. No, number 6. Number 6.
Yeah.
He had this one. He has.
Yes,
the
yeah,
pencil
yeah.
for
He
it.
had that one in the background.
So.
Into the nest.
Yep. So yeah, most likely starting with number 10, issue by issue breakdown. I'm hoping he can have a setup to where he has the camera top facing down, which would be really cool for him to just kind of have this setup, be able to point things, hold it closer to the camera, and get really get into that detail would be super cool. So that's what's coming in the future, and I'm very excited for that. What else we got?
I thought it was so funny how he was talking about that he wants to still do everything by hand, and that he doesn't do digital art. He still does it. He scans it and all of that. And I think that absolutely comes off in his art. That it's just there is a realness to it that you just don't get if you just scribbled it on Photoshop or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the fact to what you mentioned, like even that original file, you can copy and duplicate that original file, whether it's a PSD or whatever file type it is, as many times as you want. And there really is, in the metadata, there probably,
unless you want to make an NFT, I guess that's the only
like there can be an original, but ultimately it's not the same as having the one of one.
And I think he probably first brought that up when he was talking about things he likes to tell his students, similar to how he was saying, you know, always keep your original, but also when you do it by hand, that actually allows you to have an original.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, he definitely subscribes to that. And yeah, even Chuck mentioned or says in the chat, this one is awesome. Love the style. And I was going to say it felt like the 2003 Clone Wars Tartakovsky.
Yeah, that's a great comparison.
I just don't know if I was in the moment. I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to compare it to like a contemporary of the time.
Yeah.
I don't know how he would take that.
I gotta give you some slack right here for not knowing what the Visorak were.
Visorak.
Yeah, I was like, am I seeing the wrong thing? Like,
I totally blanked. I don't know why.
It happens.
Totally blanked. But here, I'm gonna put this on the bigger screen just because I really, I got to rework some stuff. I wasn't prepared to go on this one. There we go. Well, it's not bigger, so I think it would make more sense to just go on here. But yeah, no, that one would be cool, and I think Chuck mentioned in a comment that he wanted a print of this one, and I think it would depend because, like he said, this one was never used. He put it to them as an idea.
Basically, it was not a proposal, but there's another term here.
Concepts?
Yeah, that's it.
Concept art? Just
yes.
But it could have technically been a commission though. If you think about it. They could still own this.
Yeah, they could.
It just it really depends.
So then that kind of traps into, do they own the fact that those are Bionicles? I can tell you from my experience with the Mouse House that having the visual of something does matter.
True. But he mentioned near the end of his video near the end of the interview that, how did he say it? He can do a commission, and I think I could have mixed up semantics, but he said he can do a commission of a character. I thought he was referring to Bionicle characters as long as it's a new and original piece. So like he can't redraw.
That's how I take it too.
he can't redraw cover 14 and
Right.
say it's a new thing that I drew. I can sell it.
Right.
So he can do like TAKANUVA standing with his arm around Tahu and then sell that as a commission. Is that what he was saying?
Yeah, and also I took a peek. I know he said like, his website's still up, but he hasn't necessarily updated or it's outdated.
Yeah.
I think it says like 2014 on it. But that is mentioned there that you can have him do commissions for Bionicles, but that other things weren't possible.
Did he have a price on that?
No, I would imagine you just have to email him for one. At least I doubt
had someone do a commission before?
Like, have I ever asked someone to do one?
Yeah. Have you ever had a commission of any artwork before for your channel? Or I know typically you just create your own stuff.
Yeah, no, I do it all. I've never. I know people that do commissioned art, but I don't have any experience actually paying for it.
So a portrait painting, I don't know what this would fall under. Video game cover art typically costs between $500 and $1,800.
Wow.
I mean, and with his experience, like,
yeah,
very experienced.
I wonder what the turnaround time is like. I know he's currently doing Scooby-Doo comics right now. I wonder if it's a couple month process of, hey, we'll talk about this, we'll get exactly what you want, and then it'll be a couple weeks, couple months until.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Hey, Stud City, good to see you in chat. Yeah, I don't know what that turnaround would be like. Because I know he said he's pretty busy, whether it's with school, class, working on these.
It's a lot of juggling a lot of things.
Yeah, it probably would just depend on how much you're willing to pay. Even can you pay the premium?
True.
But yeah, that would be it would be interesting to see what a commission would cost. Probably more than I'm willing to pay right now.
I would agree.
But yeah, I thought it was interesting when he asked me what Lego thinks about what I'm doing.
Right. He kind of alluded to that a couple times of like, oh, well, like, did you hear from Lego about this? And you were kind of just like, no, like, this is my creative space. This is where I get to do all of that.
Yeah. And I don't think, like, maybe if the interview, like he said, if the interview gets tens of thousands of views, or if we had a couple thousand people watching the stream right now, yeah, maybe they would be like, hey, what's this guy doing? Is he doing anything we can nab him for? And XYZ. Yeah. So thankfully none of that is happening. Well, I guess, I wouldn't complain if there were a couple thousand people watching right now.
No, it seems like there's a lot of benefits to that. What was your peak for the Bricklink? Was it like 1,300-1,200?
I think it was either just over or just under 1,400.
Wow.
So yeah,
that's awesome.
That was super cool. That was cool. But no, not getting those numbers here. But hey, you never know. Once I decide to make that Bionicle alt channel, and then really get the algorithm working for the Bionicle favor, then we'll be getting places. But no, let's see. Any other thoughts?
I thought it was really interesting that he was like, if Lego ever reached back out, I'm doing it. Not even a question about it. Yeah. And that he mentioned G3.
Did he say the words G3?
No, he didn't say the words G3, but he mentioned Bionicle coming back.
Yeah, I was like, let's do it. Come on.
Yeah.
And I looked in the camera and said, Lego, what are you waiting for?
What are they waiting for? Like,
but even just the idea of reprinting, like, they can't lose.
Yeah, because you had mentioned the potential to reprint full 11x17s and getting a whole book of that, similar to, I mean, I have Iconic Stills, Metru Nui, the Heroes of Metru Nui book right over there. Yeah, like, and that was, you had mentioned 35. It was either 35 or 50. It was somewhere in there. But yeah, I jumped at that at a heartbeat. I would gladly pay upwards of 50, 75 for a full size Bionicle artwork book.
Yeah. And yeah, full artwork book would be cool. I was even just saying like individual covers like selling one for 50.
Almost like
I
a
don't know if
poster
he
thing.
I don't know if he was assuming I meant a full book as well.
Yeah, that's how I took it, but that makes sense too.
So yeah, like a full book. I mean, if you think about, they just released the Star Wars one for was it 150?
Yeah. Are they gonna release that without all the extra bonus items, or I guess I just have to eBay that?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be 120.
All right.
Or something like that. Maybe 100 even. I don't know.
But either way, the precedent is there of, and especially with visual dictionaries, and I'm looking at a Bionicle encyclopedia right over there, and the Rahi Beast, like there is a history. It's just never been done before for a theme that's not currently running.
Yeah.
So I guess we might potentially need G3 to get that.
Yeah, it would have to definitely be, or I mean, hey, next year, no, not next year, the year after, 25th anniversary, they could do a book for 25th anniversary. Obviously, we'd rather have sets, naturally.
We would, but I think that opens the door for Lego of, hey, you don't have to, this is a much less expensive way to still nurture to that community.
And even doing pre-orders for it and then not really selling more than that, or just keeping a couple on hand. Which I can only imagine that's what they're doing with the Star Wars book.
Yeah, something. Well, I guess there's a lot of retailers that carry the Star Wars book. I'm thinking more in line like the Bricklink Designer program, of almost like it might not be an official release, but maybe in one of their other entities they release it through that.
Yeah, cool, Han. You nailed it. Bionicle seems to have such a rich tapestry and a thirsty fan base, which rarely applies to a closed property. It's weird. Yeah, no, that's. It surprises me as well. You know, you've got Facebook groups that are 45,000 strong.
How many are in the Reddit? It's so many.
I haven't.
The Bionicle memes Reddit is loaded.
The Bionicle Reddit has.
There's 57,000 in Bionicle memes.
There's 66,000 in our Bionicle Lego.
Yeah.
Is there even an our Bionicle? Our Bionicle looks to be a little defunct. Oh, apparently it was like a backup to our Bionicle Lego. So, yeah. 66,000 members. Top 2%.
Yeah.
Of subreddits. Yeah, no, and it's crazy. And you've got the other wild thing is you have creatives continuing to make things for Bionicle, whether it's us making videos or Iconic Stills making these insane pieces.
Yeah.
You know, the robot doing those insane animations.
Yep.
Like
the video games. Yeah. I know they haven't officially come out yet.
Yeah. And they're unfortunately like most of them are a little paused, but still like even the betas are still. I mean, like you if they would release those, even you could play them.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
And they're at a higher quality, and that was one of the things with Iconic Stills book that I was so happy with. Of this is at a higher quality than anything we ever got with Lego, just because it's been at that point you're going back to 2001 content. It's been 25 years almost.
Yeah, it's crazy. Hey Kathleen, thanks for stopping by. We're talking about an interview I had on Thursday with Randy Elliott, who did the artwork for the Bionicle comics. So you can definitely check that interview out. It's on my channel. He was able to show me some of his original pencils and inks, which is just amazing. So definitely check that interview out. There's one of the covers, number 14. He showed 10. He showed 12. He showed 27. So just a lot of cool stuff. So yeah, I thought like he wants something to happen. He even brought up the reproduction of those if he would be able to. I'm sure, I imagine he'd be willing to allow whatever Lego would allow him to do. I'm sure he'd like to make money off of it. Like, can't blame the man for getting paid for his work. But still, it would be.
It does feel cool. Like there is a part of him that is invested in the actual Bionicle part of it, It definitely
Yeah.
comes off that way, just with his passion, how he was talking about everything.
Yeah, no, because a lot of or some designers or artists, speaking mainly to the Lego space, it's just a job. Like they're not fans of what they're making, and it's not a knock on them by any means. It's just some people become fans of what they're doing, and some people don't. But yeah, I definitely got the sense of that as well. That he's a fan of Bionicle. He finds the story fascinating. He finds the world
Yeah.
engaging. What did he? He mentioned it at one point. I think it was when I asked him of bit more or less, are you surprised that it's still being talked about today, standing the test of time,
Hmm.
as it were?
Right. No. So when you were talking to him about that, I thought it was interesting of how he gave a lot of that credit, because you were asking, people coming back to these comics now, and he directly went straight into, well, it's Lego and it's Bionicle that's generating the
Yeah,
interest, and
yeah,
then the comics are there as almost not a supplement, but they're not the main drawback. The main drawback is still the community that it built.
yeah, yeah. No, it's very true, and yeah, I definitely agree with him there. Um, so actually, I don't. Kulhan asked if he was the colorist. I don't think he did any of the coloring.
Now I could have swore he did.
I think he said they would do the scans. He
Uh-huh.
would send the scans off, and then someone else would digitally color them.
Yeah, I think you're right, because
Which that surprised me as well.
yeah, it looks like Pete Pantazis, I may have botched that last name, was pretty consistently the colorist on his later issues.
And
I
I don't
guess
know if
I just mixed up inking with coloring or colorist.
yeah. No, because I think pencil is literally just the pencil.
Mm-hmm.
Inking is adding the
Pen.
heavy or the pen, the heavy
Because yeah, he
pen
described,
slash brush.
was it the blue line draft? It was something like that.
Mm-hmm. I think he said sometimes they would order a blue line draft, sometimes they
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Yep.
Just depending on what they wanted to see, I guess. Yeah, but then I thought also that was interesting. He said the inker could add their own style or influence on the art after it's already penciled,
Mm.
which is kind of interesting. Like, and I guess that goes into like the Rahkshi one, where
Yeah.
the foregrounds were heavier, the background was lighter. That's probably
Yeah.
something that the inker could add to the art. But yeah, one more thing that just came to mind when I asked if it was easier to draw them because
Mm-hmm.
they were toys, and he was like, "No, that made it harder,
Yeah.
more
Right.
difficult to draw." I was like, "Oh, I figured like it'd be easier because you can look at them," but that was just funny to me. That apparently it was more difficult to draw them.
Well, I guess also to the point where maybe it was a little bit different for Deanda when he was taking a little bit more liberty with those proportions, but Randy was very straight to the no, like it's gonna look like the set, and so that might
Yeah.
have made it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, because Deanna, he definitely took liberties. Like
Yeah, I'm looking at Tahu's kneecaps. The guy's
on
got
cover one, yeah,
looks like implants.
I was just about to say that like the
Yeah,
piece is flipped upside down, and I don't even
yeah,
think it's a real piece.
it's backwards for sure too.
Um, yeah, and then well, I guess the colorist messed up. His flame sword, his quote unquote wrist is red when it should be the
Black.
orange. You see that?
Oh yes, I do see that. Well, that should be black.
Where's Tahoe?
Oh no, I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah, that part should be orange. It's on
Yeah,
the back cover.
yeah, because they have the actual toy on the back. Yeah, I was just about to say that
I
as
just
well.
saw that too. No, they messed up the flame sword on the left side too, because that bottom hilt piece should be the orange.
Yep.
And yeah,
Nitpicking. It is what it is.
23 years ago, I can't believe no one caught this.
The colorist. Fire that colorist. Fire them. Kulhan, yes, the Bionicle Day is August 10th because it spells bio 810. And then for our European friends, it's October 8th as well.
Ooh.
Because that's 8.
Is that official, or did you just pull that one out right there?
No, it's semi-official. I don't since the greater community does it on 8/10, but I think the European folks, they kind of throw in, well, it's technically October 10th or October 8th.
Yeah.
But yeah. So any final thoughts about the interview? Any other things that stood out to you? Otherwise, we'll wind down.
I would say about the actual interview, I think we covered really everything that I had kind of jotted down. I think if you want to talk more about the potential future collaborations you guys might have, I think there's a lot there.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the sort of the middle-ish, and what Randy mentioned at the end, or near the end of the interview, is that he's very willing to do an issue-by-issue breakdown for us on live stream or video or whatever I think would work best for that. So very excited about that. Of course, I think starting, like we talked about, starting at issue 10 is probably what he would be willing to do and what would make the most sense, because that's when he fully came on board as the penciler and the inker. So doing that, oh man, that just digging into the details like we did, even mentioning things like with cover 13, the foreground, background, just getting into all those details will be super, super fun.
And hearing how much he can pull back, it sounds like he has a great recollection of exactly what he was thinking from way back. So it almost, to me, sounds like it's going to feel like he's talking about comics he drew up last year, when in reality, they were drawn 20 years ago.
Yeah, and that was something he mentioned a couple of times, saying, oh, I'm glad you asked about this stuff, because then it led me to pull out this thing, and then I found that, and then I found this, and it was just cool. It'll be interesting to see what other things he can pull out and find.
Yeah.
And I'm sure at some point he'll dig out the tote of Bionicle toys.
Yeah.
And then
prototype pieces.
Exactly. Those prototype pieces, stuff like that. So future videos there. I'm still deciding if it would make more sense to do videos or live streams for that. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think he's a great personality for like a live. I feel like he'd be great at that. I just wonder what the timing would be, if he would be like, hey, Saturday nights aren't exactly
that's
the
true.
freest.
That's a really, really good point. And I don't know if I've heard that video or YouTube premieres are like the worst possible thing you can ever do.
I've never even thought about touching them.
So
it just doesn't sound like a great.
But hey, like, let's see. I guess it can be a good proof of concept, depending on how this video, the interview, full first interview goes, and then I'll decide what to do from there. Because it could be nice, because for the next couple months I'm going to be pretty busy, so just to have something to fill the space will be nice. So yeah, we'll see how that goes, but very looking forward to that.
Oh, it's going to be awesome.
All right, well, thank you everyone for joining the stream today. Don't forget, before you leave, if you like the stream, if you enjoyed your time here, subscribing. Let me know if those videos or those comic issue by issue intrigues you. Oh, Kulhan asks, did you invite him to
I just
World?
thought he kind of talks about conventions for a little bit in the interview.
Yeah, so I didn't invite him to Brick World, but I think it would make a lot more sense for him to go to Brick Fair, because of the Bionicle focus that is there. So I feel like that would make a lot more sense for him.
Brick Fair is loaded. Loaded. Haven't just gone there down this year too.
Yeah, and I feel like that would, him being in New York, that would have to be obviously
a lot
closer
easier
than Chicago.
Well,
Syracuse area?
Up by Syracuse. There's an airport there because it's a big college, but drive-wise, it's probably still like 7-8 hours.
Okay.
Syracuse is pretty up there.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Yeah, I just don't know if it would make sense for him to come to Brick World, just because that's not Bionicle focused at all.
No, and
it's
I
not
remember
like
when we had talked about Brick Fair when I had gone down there, that was part of the discussion was there was so much Bionicle.
Yeah. So we'll see about that. But yeah, once again, super excited about the potential future opportunities with this. And hey, maybe if he hits his connections up back at Lego and he's able to communicate to them that people want this stuff, like pull some
G3
strings.
CPA responsible for G3.
Oh my word, dude, that would be a dream come true. That's on no one's bingo card for any year, but that will just make it even that much better. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe I have some tricks up my sleeve. But yeah, once again, thank you so much, All Out Brick, for joining today. Happy to have you.
Thank you for having me, man. Always a blast coming on here.
Yeah, we'll definitely do this again soon. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Take care and have a good night.